Welcome to HBI Sabbath School. I'm John Lyons. I'm here with Pastor Sasha Bolotnikov and my good friend Savannah Carlson. Thank you for joining us as we go over Lesson 13, which is about waiting on the Lord. My question to you, Sasha, is how can we wait on the Lord? How do we kaveh, as the Hebrew says?
This is very interesting because I was looking through a number of different psalms where it says in English, wait on the Lord, but it's kaveh, it's actually the hope. Because in Hebrew, wait would be like chakeh, like, for example, Israelis are extremely impatient people. I don't know if you have you been to Israel? No.
No.
I have.
I mean, Israelis. That's the character of typical Israeli. Not all the Jews are like this, but when we refer to about Israelis, it's like a very impatient people. They're loud in expressing their impatience, and it's like you can see, for example, one of the problem in Israel is traffic. You have a narrow street, and you have a tour bus trying to back into the parking lot, and he goes, he blocks the traffic, and there are a couple taxi drivers stop, and they just can't, and the bus driver is also loud. They don't, they scream at each other, and he's just showing from a wait. And they cannot wait. They're so impatient. So, how do you tolerate waiting?
I mean, people that know me know that I'm not a very patient person sometimes. So I very much understand that Israeli impatience. Like, just wait. No, I need to get it done now. Yeah.
I try to remind myself, well, if I'm waiting, there's a reason for it. There's probably nothing I can do to make this go faster. Otherwise, I would do it. So I try to occupy myself with other things.
The Lord taught me several lessons in waiting. My favorite lesson was back in the year 2000 when I was awarded a nice scholarship to go to the Hebrew Union College where I got to get my PhD. And it was a big thing. And so one of the biggest problems was to obtain an American student visa. So my wife and I went to the embassy, and we stood in line. It was, understandable. Many people got disappointed because the consulate usually refuses visas to many. It's not easy. But we were not refused. The officer congratulated us with a visa and told us to go pay the fee. And so we went and paid the fee, hoping that we would get our passports with visa back tomorrow or a couple days later. So we stayed in Moscow, and next morning I went to the window hoping to receive my passport, and the clerk at the window shrugged his shoulder and shook her head and said, "No, I don't have your passport." And so then the next day happened the same, and the next day happened the same. So I was growing worried. And I had to go back to Zooksky, that's the seminary I was teaching. I was about 60 miles south of Moscow, and I had to teach and I had to do something. But I was so anxious to go back to Moscow. As soon as my day off came, I ran to the train. It was when you are impatient, the hours of writing, the 2 hours of writing felt like 24. Especially when back then you didn't have a cell phone to entertain yourself. And then I went to the window and I got the same response.
Oh, no.
And then it was like, I began to really worry. I began to be anxious. So my wife and I had a trip for her birthday to St. Petersburg. We went. She was trying to console me because she was quite calm, but I wasn't. I, didn't enjoy the trip. We went, everything, but I was it was so bothering. Then I had to go to teach to Central Asia. It was like, I don't understand why they were holding my passport for 2 months. What was going on? But it was just because there was nothing I could do. It was just so unnerving to do this. But the Lord gave me the visa, and I ended up being a student. Everything went fine. So after that, I kind of learned my lesson to be patiently waiting for the Lord.
Now, you said that was one of your favorite instances of learning that. Why did you put it that way?
Because sometimes it is very important for us to be patient. So let's read this story, which is found in 1 Samuel chapter 13, verses 7 through 10.
Some Hebrews even crossed the Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. Saul remained at Gilgal, and all the troops with him were quaking with fear. He waited 7 days, the time set by Samuel. But Samuel did not come to Gilgal, and Saul's men began to scatter. So he said, "Bring me the burnt offering and the fellowship offerings." And Saul offered up the burnt offering. Just as he finished making the offering, Samuel arrived, and Saul went out to greet him.
Yeah, so what did Saul do for 7 days?
He waited.
Yeah, so that's the waiting period. Mm-hmm. And Samuel, who, by the way, was the prophet.
Right.
So he had directions from God. And definitely in this whole story, there was a big crisis. They didn't win the battle. They needed the Lord. And so actually, if we were to talk about waiting upon the Lord, that's the story of what happens when we actually don't wait upon the Lord.
Because even though he waited for 7 days, he did not hope on the Lord.
Yeah, he was waiting with impatience.
Of course, that's the key. That's the key part here. But it is also what's important. Look at what Samuel says in verse 13 and 14.
"You have done a foolish thing," Samuel said. "You have not kept the command the Lord your God gave you. If you had, he would have established your kingdom over Israel for all time. But now your kingdom will not endure. The Lord has sought out a man after his own heart and appointed him ruler of his people because you have not kept the Lord's command."
What command actually did he not keep?
I believe it was that he spared the life of the king?
That's a difference.
No, it was that he didn't wait for Samuel to arrive to ask the Lord to intervene.
Exactly. There is a point here. Did Saul, according to the commandment of God, have a right to sacrifice?
No.
Yeah. What about Samuel?
Yes.
I would assume so.
Sure. His father is a priest, so he is a prophet and a priest. So you can't do it. You have to have a priest. If a prophet who is also a priest doesn't come, there is a reason for it.
Yeah.
We may not know the reason for it, but that's exactly when when Samuel says to Saul, "Hey, you broke the commandment of God." It's not about, we don't have a commandment about waiting, but there was a commandment, but there is a clear commandment who is allowed to sacrifice, under which circumstances, how it's supposed to be done. And Saul didn't do it.
He overstepped his position.
Exactly. I think he even did more. Where the sacrifice is supposed to be made.
Oh, yes. At the specific place in the tabernacle.
In a tabernacle at this time. And why do you think Saul was doing it?
He was desperate.
Yeah, he said, people are running away from it. I had to do something. So,
he did it in the tradition of the world.
Yeah, exactly. He was just acting like every other pagan nations would do, and that wasn't the case. So Samuel wasn't even coming to do the sacrifice. He was coming for different reason, but Saul decided that the sacrifice would actually, so what happens is we have a chain of events that leads to the demise of his dynasty. And the chain of events starts that in order to establish his authority, he breaks the fundamental commandment of God by acting like a priest in an inappropriate place, thinking that God could be manipulated by this action. And that's exactly why God says, you don't understand me. You don't understand me. And that's why basically, the waiting on the Lord. It's interesting, another example, it's the parable about the widow and the judge. It's in Luke chapter 18. Let's read verse 2 through 5.
He said, "In a certain town there was a judge who neither feared God nor cared what people thought. And there was a widow in that town who kept coming to him with the plea, 'Grant me justice against my adversary.' For some time he refused, but finally he said to himself, 'Even though I don't fear God or care what people think, yet because this widow keeps bothering me, I will see that she gets justice, so that she won't eventually come and attack me.'"
Who is the widow and who is the judge in this parable?
I was here when you gave us a series on the parables of Jesus. I remember the judge is simply himself. He's the judge.
Yeah, let's not make a mistake to think that judge is God here, because this judge is godless.
Yeah.
But look at the conclusion, the interpretation of the parable, verse 6 and 7.
And the Lord said, "Listen to what the unjust judge says. And will not God bring about justice for his chosen ones who cry out to him day and night? Will he keep putting them off? I tell you, he will see that they get justice, and quickly. However, when the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on the earth?"
Yeah, see, he can delay. He can delay. And that's where our patience is tested. Let's just take one more detail about the patiently waiting. 1 Peter 3:9.
The Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, as some understand slowness. Instead, he is patient with you, not wanting anyone to perish, but everyone to come to repentance.
So when we read about God's intent in 2 Peter, what can it tell us when we're in a position of waiting?
If God can be patient with us, we need to be patient as well.
Exactly. God is waiting for somebody else. God can be waiting for us. So waiting is a very good, important part of the, character. to the point that it's the definition of remnant church in Revelation 14:12.
Should we
Do you
turn
want me to
there?
read that?
Look at that.
Yeah.
Okay. You want me to wait? Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay. This calls for patient endurance on the part of the people of God who keep his commands and remain faithful to Jesus.
Yeah.
And that ties back with what we read in Luke 18, their faith in Jesus. Will he find faith on the earth?
Yeah, exactly. Faith is a part of our faith, and trust is a patient endurance.
Yeah.
I like-
Patience in the waiting.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So it's not easy for us to grow such a character trait, but the more experience we have with God, the more calm we become, because it's, impatience is connected with the absence of peace of mind and peace of heart. So you can't just expect for it to appear suddenly. You can't expect a 6-year-old who is kind of learning about God and Jesus in the Sabbath school to exercise patient endurance. No way.
No. It also, as we're talking about the waiting and the faithfulness, the word that we talked about earlier that just keeps coming back to mind for me is that hope as well, because when we're waiting and when we have patience, we are able to be faithful and have patience in that hoping for what God has promised, right? Faith is built on hope and patience and love and trust and joy. I think sometimes we see waiting and hope as so intricately entwined. But earlier we were talking about how hope is a different word
Yes.
in the Hebrew. And is it the word hope that's used?
Yes, in Psalm it's hope, and you're right, it's just two different faces of the same diamond, I would say. But yeah, when we read Psalm 27:14, let's just read it again.
Okay. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord.
Yeah, but the context is important. This is very unusual psalm. So take a look at the beginning, verse 1 through 3.
The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall.
What kind of tone, what kind of mood do you think it is when you hear these words?
He's not concerned with the things that would trouble others.
For me, I hear almost like a rejoicing. Like, God has got this. I have nothing to worry about.
Okay. So this is a very interesting psalm because, it seems like, it's a great hymn of praise, and I don't know if I'm not sure if English has this song, in hymnals, but I've heard some other songs like this in Portuguese based on this, and it's kind of very upbeat, very marching type of melody, but then it takes a little bit of a shift here. Take a look at verse 7. Start verse 7.
Hear my voice when I call, Lord. Be merciful to me and answer me. My heart says of you, seek his face. Your face, Lord, I will seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not turn your servant away in anger. You have been my helper. Do not reject me or forsake me, God, my Savior.
What is changing? Do you see a change?
He's anxious.
He becomes very anxious, but it goes at the end. It goes toward the end. This is unusual because usually psalms like this begin with the anguish, expression of anguish, and end on the upbeat note. This one starts with upbeat note, but where is it going? Verse 10.
Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. Teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors. Do not turn me over to the desire of my foes, for false witnesses rise up against me, spouting malicious accusations.
Yeah, these kind of words, they are all throughout the Psalms. Psalm 3, we read it many times, and it's usually starting, some false witnesses, some enemies and stuff like this. But then at the end, God's judge. But here, boy, it's beginning is really good. And it's like, and to me, this psalm is a very, very interesting experience because very often we have people who, when they come to the Lord and they're very up on high, and something really, really happens, I'm pretty sure there are many people who listen to this broadcast, and they may be in a position very similar. Like very often, like even with my wife, when she came to church for the first time, her parents seriously opposed this, and she almost lost any connection with her family. Mine was kind of iffy. So some of my more distant relatives kind of ridiculed me, thought I'm just got crazy, became connected with some church, stuff like this. So, coming to the church was just a glorious moment. Coming back to the skeptical family was tough. It was tough. So I feel it. But how does verse 13 and 14?
I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I love that he specifies in the land of the living, right? Like death is not going to, though it will be a peace of sorts, that is not the goodness of God that I'm going to experience. It's going to happen while I'm still alive.
Oh yeah, that's exactly right. So there's an expression, even though he is not in the best shape and things happen on the road, the blocks, caused him some serious obstacle, but he's confident, I believe that I will see the goodness of God. And then he draws the lesson. Just have the Lord, hope in the Lord. Just Lord, in your hope. In the life of myself and my wife, we had a wedding in a church, and it was a very interesting experience because not a single relative of ours were the believers. And so, but the church acted in such a great love and acceptance that they conducted all these wedding ceremony and then all the program, and because we couldn't do anything, we didn't have anybody, it's just the church became our family. And they invited my family and Irina's family to the church, and the program was so pleasing that after the wedding, right away we came home. And my mother-in-law came to Irina and say, please forgive me for what I've been saying. And then 6 years later, she was baptized.
Amen.
That's beautiful.
And my parents both were baptized 10 years later. So the Lord acts in his appropriate time. Sometimes we think it's delayed, but it's not. It's not up to us to judge how long it should take God to do what he needs to do.
Right.
I think one thing that also really struck me when we were reading through this is at the end in verse 13, he's making a choice. He's saying, I am going to remain confident in my faith. And it's when we're going through those difficulties and those waiting periods where we get to choose whether we're going to keep the faith or whether we're going to choose to not keep the faith and make decision like Saul did. And I love this example of making that decision and choosing to trust that God is still all-powerful, even if it's not coming together the way you think it should.
Yes, absolutely.
I have a question. It's kind of been eating me for a while, even before we did this lesson. In verse 14, it says, wait for the Lord, be strong, and let your heart take courage. Yes, wait for the Lord. What does it mean to be strong? I mean, we see that with Joshua as well. Yeah, like it's that easy. Like I can just make a choice to be strong. You know, how
That's what I refer as experience. The more we are at it, the stronger we are. Naturally, strength will never come, but you start doing it. You can come to the gym with the very weak muscles, and you take only barely 10 pounds. You know, maybe not in my case the gym, but over the winter, I love biking. So winter like this, balmy -4, it's probably not a good idea to bike.
Yeah.
So when I get out in April, it will be difficult.
because you haven't done it all winter.
Yeah, but it will take me about, if I'm consistent, I can do this. So even though, and what I'm doing here, I'm treading in dangerous waters here theologically, because some people will take it too far and say you can train yourself to be not to sin. That's a different situation. I'm not going to get into this, but what we see in the Bible, you can definitely train yourself to be patient with God. And the patience is one of the characters, especially perseverance. Take a look at how Jesus describes the end of this world in Matthew 24, verse 13 and 14.
But the one who stands firm to the end will be saved, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come.
See, the preaching of the gospel around the world as the witnesses is connected with us being firm in our great hope of the second coming.
Thank you, Sasha. That was very enlightening. I know that I've been blessed today, and we hope you have too. Please remember to like and subscribe, and feel free to leave a comment. We'll see you next time.